Welcome and happy new year. Thank you for joining A Woman's Strength, empowering stories from struggles to triumph. 2024, you guys, we are here. And I'm so excited because I have a special guest on with me today. She is Christa Galvez. And wait, before we get started, I'm so excited about this episode. I forgot to mention who I am. I'm Rosita Perez. I am your host. I'm a self-discovery coach. I'm also a realtor. I get to help people find their way home, whether it's a physical home or the core of who you are. So let's get back to my guest. Oh my gosh, you guys, you're going to be so blessed. My guest is Christa Galvez. She is a reparenting coach. She helps moms with little ones to learn how to stop the power struggle, where the moms learn to yell less and connect more. And you know why? So that they can show up as the mom they wish they had. I'm telling you, okay, get ready because this is going to be a great podcast. Let me bring Christa up. Christa,
Hello.
Happy New Year. Are we
Thank
ready?
you. We're ready.
So today, you and I, we were talking about before recording is that we wanted to talk about how come New Year's resolutions and behaviors we vow to change, how come it fizzles out and eventually doesn't work? Let's just dive into it. And I'd like to hear what you have to say about this topic.
I guess we'll just dive right in, right? When somebody
Let's
is
do
like
it.
saying like, I want to lose weight. Okay, well, how much weight do you want to lose? 1 pound, 20 pounds, 30 pounds? And you want to lose fat or lose muscle, or does it not matter? So I think that's one part of it, is that like we're not specific enough, right? They're like, oh, I just want to do more. But how much is that? Right? So how can you even measure whether you're being successful or not with your goal?
You definitely have to have what we call SMART goals. So it's set specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound objectives. Because I mean, you're trying to hit a target, but you don't know where the target is. So that's a great point.
Right.
What
It's
about
like
the accountability of it all?
that, I think, is also a very important aspect of it. Let's see, this is kind of a different example. Like I used to smoke when I was 18. I'm 34 now, and I probably smoked cigarettes for like 10 years of my life. And the hard part about that is that it was almost like a reverse accountability. It was when I was with friends that I would smoke more often. But to your point, when I did tell people, hey, I'm trying to quit, that's when they would be like, oh, come on, just one. We're out. We don't see each other. That's when I'd be like, all right, fine. But I want to give you a different example. Because after maybe the 5th time I tried quitting smoking, and I would be in a setting where there would be drinking and naturally cigarettes, and my friend asked me, hey, do you want a cigarette? That time I told her, actually, no, I'm not a smoker anymore. And that right there was huge for me. That was probably one of the last times that I quit smoking and became more successful. And to that point, like when I told them that I'm not a smoker anymore, and I told them like, this is just the way I'm going to be now, like they were very supportive of that.
So what I'm hearing you say is it's important to set the boundaries and set expectations for yourself and people around you so that they know this is my boundary, don't cross it. And that takes commitment to yourself though.
And courage too, right? Because like if these are your friends that, if we're going back to like the weight loss thing, like maybe you and your friends have this tradition of going to like a burger joint after like watching a movie or something. And then I think there's some of that fear of like, okay, well, what happens if I'm trying to lose weight and I don't want to eat burgers anymore or a fast food? Are people going to judge me because now I'm breaking this tradition, right? So it does take a lot of courage to just be like, hey, everybody, this is where I'm at now. Please support me in this. And we could still be friends, right?
Or not. or
Yeah,
not.
or not.
Yeah, because I think in that when we grow individually, sometimes we can really tell the difference in who our friends really are. Because when you set a boundary with yourself, you set a goal and you have milestones, the people who are around you that you trust should be uplifting you and encouraging you. So I think that's important too, is your environment.
I mean, I guess just to summarize some of the things we've already talked about, it's more than just looking at like, I'm not going to eat junk food or I'm not going to put a cigarette to my lips anymore. Right? That's just like one measure of the entire thing. But it's like, well, who are you going to be hanging out with? What are you going to be doing or not doing? Where are you going to be shopping or not shopping? So, I think if people maybe bring some awareness to this as they're starting their goals, then they can set themselves up for success.
Okay, so what I'm also hearing in setting these goals is that there should be milestones so that it's kind of you have the small win. You have the little W and the big W, right? But it motivates you to keep going and it builds your confidence as you go. And everybody knows these. I mean, there's a ton of us that are online talking about how to meet your New Year's goals. But I think that the difference in our podcast is that it's more about just setting goals. We talked about this just before we got on. It's deeper than that. You want to touch upon that, Krista?
From the point of, like, why do resolutions not stick? I think you have to ask yourself, well, why am I doing this behavior? Right? Like, again, if it's back to the eating, right? Like, let's just say for you, being healthy means not eating at fast food restaurants and just cooking at home, because you get to control all the ingredients and like what kind of oils and if there's butter going into it. If you're the kind of person that loves eating fast food, right? But the fast food is like the blockage for you to being a healthier person who weighs less. You also have to identify the fact that there is some part of you that gets a benefit from continuing the unwanted behavior.
Okay, hold on. So give me an example of that, because that's deep right there, what you just said. There's something inside of us that is almost like a self-sabotage. Well, I think the eating is a huge one in terms of, there's a part of you that wants to, I don't even want to say lose weight, maybe even just be healthier. Maybe it's a high blood pressure situation for someone in my age group. Maybe it's losing weight for somebody in your age group. But it goes deeper in terms of you want to set the goal and you want to meet it, but something always holds you back. Every year you make the same goal, right?
Yeah.
But it tends to be surface, and you could change all day long on the surface. But if the root isn't taken care of, then we're going to continue to go through the setbacks. And I think that's what you were talking about there.
Exactly. The food thing, right? So for a lot of clients that I've helped with, because I've been in the wellness industry for like 10 years, a lot of people are actually attached to being heavier. They say they don't want it. They have like the high blood pressure. The doctors are putting pressure on them. And you would think, okay, this person, this is also in the peninsula, like Palo Alto area. So people have money, right? They have resources. They have the education. They have like, the husband that wants them to do it. They have the doctor. But for whatever reason, right, they're still not being as successful as they want. So it's not a lack of willpower. It's not a lack of motivation. It's not like, okay, you just aren't trying hard enough. No. And I think that's what puts a lot of people off. They're like, oh, I'm just not trying hard enough. And they shame themselves. But what I've seen with a lot of my clients is that, like, especially when it comes to people who have like more weight, they actually feel a sense of safety in that they have this fear that, like, okay, if I lose weight and I start to like be more attractive or appealing to other people, more people are going to look at me. And some people actually like don't want that. Like that might be scary to some people.
So how would you then help a client in that particular situation?
Yeah, so I would ask them, they can always give me all these reasons on why they should lose weight, right? But then I ask them like, okay, let's just flip that around. Tell me why you shouldn't lose weight. Like what benefit are you receiving from not losing weight? And the things I usually hear are like, well, if I try and I fail, then I will be a failure. So I might as well not try. Or maybe they're going to try a little bit, but once that self-doubt creeps in and they start questioning like whether they can do it, it's so much easier to just go back to like the default and the status quo to what they're used to, because change is hard.
But here's the thing. Either you change on your own accord or life happens and you have to change.
Yeah. And like as a parent, right? Like I could speak to that all day. It's like your children are different every day. They're different every week. And once you feel like, oh, I got this parenting thing, they change again, right? So I think, I don't know why, but like as a society, we're like so afraid of change, but it's the only constant in this life.
Well, I think it's the whole unknown. We get stuck with, like you say, your client, some clients that want to, they find a safety in that. And we get stuck because we know that. We know the pitfalls, right? We know what's going to happen if we do X. If we go into the unknown, it's like whole new territory. It is scary.
Yeah.
It's definitely scary, but that is the biggest thing that holds us to not change, to not move forward. And then we stay stuck in the self-doubt cycle, right?
Yeah.
Or we have those thoughts. Like we may even have visions of getting thinner, getting healthier, whatever your goal is. And then you move forward and you get some steps, you get some little W's towards your goal. And then something happens, or your underlying beliefs where you hear the self-doubt, the negative self-talk, like, no, you're not going to be happy thin. You're not going to be able to do it. And then you go back into the self-doubt cycle. And it's just like a self-sabotage a lot of times.
And you know what that is? Like one of my mentors called that disintegration anxiety. Yeah, what that basically means is that there's like this piece of you that maybe has identified with a larger body or being a smoker, whatever it is. That piece of you is like starting to die, right? Because you have to let go of, like for me, it was the smoker, right? I had to let go of that smoker inside of me to actually become a non-smoker. And there's something inside of us, like you mentioned, is like, oh, this is scary. But that's actually like a good sign, because that means like you just got to get over that little hump, right? And then it's smooth sailing. Like you're like doing this like uphill climb and you're literally about to be at the apex. And then that's when like most of us get scared. They're like, no, I'm just going to like roll backwards. But this is why I have found that like you mentioned, having an accountability partner, or whether it's like hiring a coach or a mentor, somebody that can stick with you long term through those ups and downs and still like be there with you. Like that has been one of the most valuable tools for me in creating new behaviors, but also creating new like ways of being.
I like that point, Christa, because in every facet of our life, whether we're a young mom or a mom to young kids, or you're an empty nester, or you have teenagers, bless your heart, you want to go back to school, but you haven't been in school. There's so many different parts of our life where we have to change. Otherwise, we're going to stay in this cocoon that is not healthy. We should be evolving as a human, really, because there's so much of life out there that we're missing. What is that called? FOMO, fear of missing out. And you can't do it alone. Everything, if you think back on everything you've you've had to overcome, any new behavior that you had to start being disciplined about, you've had an accountability partner, whether it was paid for or not, right? Friends, maybe parents, maybe a coach or a therapist. You can get through it, is my point. You just have to be able to sit down and write down what it is that you really want, not from up here, but from like deep down in your spirit. What do you really want? And even go further, like how do you get there? And then, like Christa said, get a mentor, a coach, a friend that can help you be accountable.
I'm totally with you right there. I'm just like like as you were talking, I'm just thinking of like, yeah, every time that I've made like a breakthrough in my life, it did come with a disintegration anxiety. And there were a lot of times where I was like, oh, I'm going to retreat back to safety. And then when I was like real about it and I did talk to my coach about it, I'm like, okay, this is where I'm at right now. And then, there they are like, okay, you're struggling. Good. Like, good. That means that you're on your way. That means you're trying, because sometimes it's simple. It's not always easy. And that's where I think, right, like having a sounding board to just like talk through these things and to actually know that it's very normal what you're experiencing. And I'm just like wondering too, like, where did we learn this thing that like we're supposed to do life on our own? They always say like, it takes a village to raise a child, right? But then when you're an individual, you have to do life alone? I don't buy it.
I think it's like, yeah, it takes a village. But then sometimes that village doesn't necessarily pass on healthy behaviors. Let's just
True.
be honest.
That's true. That's why I'm a reparenting coach. That's why we need reparenting.
At some point now, when we get to be an adult, then it's on us to
For
deal
sure.
with the childhood wounds and figure out how to get past it. So I don't want to that's a whole nother show. That is a whole nother show. But I think it's definitely, I think we get it from childhood. I think we are raised to be like, you can do it, be strong, be strong. Well, what does that mean? And why do I have to do it alone? It never made sense to me, but as I got older, then I realized how important community is, of like-minded people.
That's what I think you notice. Like, if other people around you are also changing and struggling and just on their journey, that's when you've found your people, like the ones that you can be real around, whether it's like you're happy or you're sad, or there's space for all the feelings.
And listen, changing is not easy. So you have to have a group of women, or however, women, people who can allow you to be vulnerable and even cry. We are so taught from a very young age, don't cry. Mm-hmm. What do we do with that? What do we do with the tears? And then, we get to be older and all of a sudden we have to go to therapy in our 30s. And that's where we do all the crying. It's like, why? Let's just be able to be vulnerable, but you have to pick the right group of people to be vulnerable with. It has to be a safe place, because otherwise it's just going to jack you up if you're sharing your deepest feelings with someone who's going to take it and take advantage of you. So you have to be mindful of who you are allowing to be part of your journey of change.
There was something that you mentioned, though. You were saying something about childhood, and something that popped into my head. We're talking about, some of my clients that were struggling to lose weight. A lot of people, right? Like, especially when you're a kid, you don't really have a lot of control, right? And there was a certain way that people were raised where it's like, as the child, you just are obedient to your parents. So I think a lot of us, like myself included, have actually like almost developed this control with food, because that was one of few things that we could control back then. And so like just the whole thing about losing weight, it's like it's can be very complicated and complex with like many layers to it. So again, that might be something that you address, right? To answer the question, well, why shouldn't you lose weight? Maybe the reason why you are grabbing the sweets is because it's filling like an emotional void for you. So I think in finding out what could be an obstacle to your success, that can help you to prepare for those types of situations. And you can set up your environment to help you be successful. So like maybe it's like cookies that you reach for whenever you're feeling stressed. Don't buy the cookies anymore. Don't have it in your house. And also think about when you're feeling like you need a cookie, what could you do instead? And maybe it can be paired with you wanting to lose weight. So like instead of having a cookie, maybe you just go for a walk. Or maybe you'll call up a friend and just like have a chat. Or maybe you'll punch some pillows or dance around like no one's watching, you know? You got to find your thing. So I think that's another piece of it is like, I think typically like when it comes to losing weight, people are thinking like, okay, well, I have to go to a gym and I have to cut out like carbs and sugar. Maybe that doesn't work for everybody, right? Maybe you're not somebody who wants to lift weights. Maybe running around the block or in nature is something that's better suited to you. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that like, you also have to know yourself, like before you set your goals, like have your goals, but then like ask yourself, like, what is realistic for me? Like if I said like, I want to be healthier, so I'm going to swim every day, but I don't have access to a pool. Well, then you're making it much harder for yourself, right?
Yeah, that's true. Like jogging looks great, but I know for me, it's not my gift.
Same.
I'll do the walking. I'll walk in nature. You have to, you're right. It has to align with who you are, because then you'll have more buy-in to be able to break that habit or that negative thought pattern, right?
Right.
And I think to your point, Krista, in terms of like when I was growing up, you had to eat you had to clear your plate.
Same.
Period. Period. Whether you were full or not, because it's this whole thing that, hey, money doesn't come easy and you better be glad you have food on your plate and so on and so forth. So you get used to clearing your plate all the time. That's a huge mindset shift. And you're like, oh, no, wait, I don't have to clear my plate. And I'm not going to feel guilty about it.
Right.
But that guilt is deep. It's a deep, deep mindset.
I feel that too. Even when it's like, oh, there's this food, like, yeah, I just feel so guilty throwing it away. And even though like my body's saying like, no, you're done, I still have that struggle of like, okay, I might get in trouble if I don't. So I guess something else yeah. And like something I want to point out there is like the energy through which you are choosing to act. And I don't mean this in like a woo-woo kind of thing, right? If you're not into that kind of stuff, but it's just like what I'm talking about is like, are you acting from a place of fear? Like, oh, I'm going to eat all my food because I don't want to get punished? Or is it out of love? You know, where it's like, I love my body. I love myself. It's okay for me to not eat this food.
I think that goes to identifying and challenging those negative thought patterns. That's what it reminds me of, that process you're going through right now is it's okay for me not to eat the food. It's important for, if we're just using the example to lose weight. If you want to lose weight, then what are the negative thought patterns that have kept you stuck in that behavior of not being able to lose weight? Like Krista just mentioned, feeling guilty of not finishing your plate, or even when your body's full, you're going to keep pushing because you don't want to feel like you're going to get in trouble. So that is identifying that negative thought pattern. And now you know, hey, you're an adult, so we can make that. We have the power. That's the thing, is there's still that inner child inside of us, but we truly have the power to make that change. and say, no, I'm not going to get in trouble. I'm grown.
I know like the holidays are over, right? But like, I'm sure there's still going to be family parties throughout the year, or you're going to be out with your friends. And I'm Filipino American. So like all of our gatherings are all about food, right? So the moment you walk into somebody's house, it's like, okay, come eat. And you're eating 2 lunches, 2 dinners. You're eating basically all the time, right? So like that's their love language is food. So why did I bring that up? I guess part of it is just to like acknowledge that these challenges are there and that you might have to start doing things that you're not used to. And there's a way to do that in a way that honors you, your needs, and is still respectful of, like the customs and traditions that your family is used to.
So let's just role play that right now. That just dropped. Let's just role play it. So you're coming to my house. I'm like your auntie, right? Because I'm Islander, so that happens in our family too. It's like eat. So you're coming over to my house, and I'm like, Krista, are you hungry? We got plenty of food. We got red rice. We have kelaguen. We have beef ribs. Come on. Let's eat.
So first of all, I would probably not eat before I get there, knowing there's going to be food, right? So I'm going to come with an empty stomach and I'm going to be like, thank you, Auntie. I'm so excited. I could tell that you put so much effort into making this food. Thank you. And I'm going to have a plate, right? But then like, whereas before I would fill up my whole plate, I might just have a little bit of everything as course number 1. Just get a little sample or use a small plate and then just have that. And then what else would happen? Oh,
and you go,
I feel,
oh, Krista, come on, eat some more. There's plenty of food. You only had 1 plate. Come on.
I'm definitely going to have some more later.
I say is when I'm in your position, I would say, you know what? I'm so full, but I'll take a plate to go.
There you go.
Then because it's in our cultures, it is insulting when you don't eat. Mm-hmm. It's like, wow, we made all this food and we don't want to keep it when everybody leaves. So it's a level of respect in our culture is you gotta eat something. So eating a little bit even shows respect. And then if you can't eat anymore, then I like the idea of, because everybody has a to-go thing, right? I just take it to go because I'm so full right now and I don't want to get sick. Filipino Islander folks, that's one way you can handle that.
Summarize what we talked about, right? Like when you have a specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goal, then you're more likely to be successful, right? So it's not enough to say I'm going to lose weight. And then we also talked about like having accountability, letting people know like what your goal is, and then being prepared with setting boundaries, right? Like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. Please respect my decision. This is important to me. It would mean a lot for me if you were on board or if you supported me, right? Yeah, and I was gonna say also, like, if it's hard for you, like if you're not used to setting boundaries with people, that's where I found like having a coach or a mentor or even a therapist helpful to like role play these situations for me, so that when it came time to the real thing, I felt more confident because I wasn't like caught off guard. And then the other thing was like just to tie back to, like my example of being a smoker and refusing a cigarette, saying like, I'm trying to quit. And then the way I was successful was actually saying like, oh no, I'm not a smoker anymore. That right there is like shifting your identity to be in alignment with who you want to be when you reach your goal, right? So maybe it's not just about losing weight. Losing weight is almost like the roadmap to you becoming a healthier person. We're going to talk more about that in the next episode of breaking down what does that identity piece mean, how you can set yourself up to create a lifestyle change and not just a behavior change.
Right. We got to go deep where a lot of our New Year's resolutions kind of fizzle off because it's just surface. So we also talked about like figuring out where those setbacks come from, identifying the challenging negative thought patterns. So we're going to get deeper into that in our next podcast, which is the fourth Friday of the month. So write down your calendars. We are so excited to be able to share that part. I think that that will be able to break down those walls that we've had up and move forward into a life that you want. Now, Krista, let's let people know how to get in contact with you.
I'm reachable through email, which is Krista, Krista, at KristaCoaching.com. You can also follow me on Instagram. It's mindfulmama.tribe.
I love that. Mindful Mama. All right. So before we close, I want to invite you to go to my website, movingforwardforlife.com. You can schedule your complimentary clarity call to help you get started. We can create a mini plan to overcome self-doubt. I just want you to remember that you are not alone. You have the power. You've got the power to choose the trajectory of your life, and you have the choice. So mark your calendars for the fourth Friday of this month, and we will see you then. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.